The SY series from Yamaha fits kind of awkwardly into the category of synths that time forgot. Let's talk about why. Hi, I'm Zach Marr from Alamo Music here in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications. This is our Alamo Sound Lab channel where we talk about all things music technology related. And today we're talking about the vintage Yamaha SY-77, released right at the end of the 80s, 89, 90, 1990. This thing was, I think, arguably one of Yamaha's first workstations. It almost feels like a response to the Korg M1 and the Roland D50. Yamaha got a head start on everyone with its release of the DX7 FM synthesis, and everybody was playing catch-up. Roland had its success with the D50. Korg had wild success with its M1 workstation. And then Yamaha released what was arguably the heir to the DX7, the SY-77. It was a flagship product. And what it did was it took one of the most advanced kind of FM engines, I think it was the engine in the DX7 Mark II, and also combined it with AWM technology, the advanced waveform modeling technology from Yamaha, and you could layer these two on top of each other, kind of like the sample plus synthesis that you found in the linear, the LA synthesis from Roland. This was what you found in the SY-77. And so it's also interesting fact, this was the last flagship from Yamaha, the SY-77 and SY-99, that had a full-blown FM engine in it. There was, I think, one other product, maybe a couple other, I think there's one other rack mount product that had a full-blown FM engine in it, but after that you didn't get the full kind of DX engine in the 90s, and you didn't really see it again until very recently, I think, with the DX, the refaced DX. So really interesting, this is the last time they used it, and they used it in combination with other technology, and it was the point where Yamaha began to really develop their workstation kind of architecture, and that you would see in the D5, the W5 and I think the next one after this was like a W5 and W7, and then we had the EX5, which we did a video on. Then you get into the Montage, and you get into, in the 2000s, you get into a bunch of MODX, which is like the current version, there's a whole history there of workstations, but this I think was one of the earliest, if not the earliest. And it's an interesting piece. What's also interesting is that there was the SY-22 and the SY-35, which were vector synthesis synthesizers that Dave Smith's team designed. The SY-22 in particular, Dave Smith's team designed it, and then he was stolen. Yamaha bought Sequential, and then Dave Smith was stolen by Korg to do the Wavestation after that, but there was this period of time where he developed right in the 1990 as well, the SY-22 was released, and that was a totally different instrument. I mean, it did blend as well, the AWM and FM, and used vector, the vector knob, but it's kind of just an interesting, to me the SY series is a little confusing because what is the relationship between the 22, the 35, and the 77 and the 99? It's not super clear. You lose the vector synthesis on this, but you gain a bunch of other stuff. So why do I think this synth was forgotten? Well, I think that the idea of a workstation was in its infancy, and this, I think, was really pretty heavy on the programmability and like a deeper synthesizer, and workstations in a lot of ways moved towards simplicity and kind of making it easy for people to arrange and perform. And this feels more, you have elements there, but it feels like it's still focused a lot on programming and FM programming, which isn't particularly easy. And this was also really pretty expensive. I think at the time it was like 3,000 USD. and it sounds great. I think this instrument sounds really good. It's one of the best sounding digital synths I've played by Yamaha from this era, and it feels great. And yeah, so let's take a waveform. Let's take a moment, listen to it, and I'll conclude with some final thoughts. Okay, there you have it, the SY-77. I think it sounds really nice. It has something like 45 different algorithms for its FM engine. It's a 6-operator FM engine. It's got 3 feedback loops. It's got a ton of sounds in it, as well, I think, as pretty complex effects chains that you can apply to the different engines. So it really is it's nice sounding, it's pretty full-featured. And again, I think this synth was forgotten because it feels more like a deep programming synth than it does a workstation. And I think at the same time, when I think about other synths on the market at this time, Korg with its M1, that feels, if you look at the history, it seems like the quest for realism and kind of performance-heavy synths was the kind of what was in vogue. And this doesn't feel like it does what a Korg M1 does. And I think that might have been why it didn't have as much success. It was more niche, it was more for the FM guys, and I think the workstations, which took over the further you go in the 90s and into the 2000s, was more appealing to a broader audience. And this is, I think, for people that really like to program, this is probably more appealing, but the broader audience was not that at the time. And if I had to make an argument for why this synth was forgotten, that would be my argument. How does it sound? I think it sounds great. I think it's unique. It's also absurdly inexpensive. You can find these really cheaply. There's a big community of people that love these things and have developed lots of sound bakes for them. The SY-99 people, it's like an upgraded version of this, and there's also rack mount versions of both of these. But this is a really interesting kind of early workstation from Yamaha. And yeah, that's all I got on it. I know there's people that know a lot about this and can talk more authoritatively about what happened to it, how the market perceived it, and what's unique about it. I'd love for people to fill in the comments below. Maybe we'll do a follow-up video comparing it to other products from other manufacturers at the time. I think this is a really interesting time in synth history, the turn of the decades between the 80s and the 90s. And Yamaha really produced a ton of digital synths in the 90s, and a lot of them are not super well documented or talked about. So this is my contribution. Would love to hear from you below. And again, if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, we'd love to see you here again. And if you'd like to talk more, come visit us at alamomusic.com. We'd love to see you there. Thanks for watching. Also, the SY-77 had digital filtering that you could apply to the sound engines, which was a big deal. Forgot to mention it. Sorry.